management. Behavior management is something that I am doing constantly in schools, talking to teachers, talking to LSAs. One of the things that is very popular is ABA. Now, ABA has many aspects to it. It is a huge and wide range of strategies and things that you need to understand before you can say that you are an ABA therapist or that you are using ABA correctly. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to hand over to Ms. Sophia, who is going to speak to you about functional behavior assessment in the classroom. Most importantly is supporting positive behavior and then learning outcomes. So let's have Ms. Sophia on. You let me know.
Right. Thank you so much, ma'am. Hello, everyone. I hope everybody is okay and everybody can hear me clearly. So my name is Sophia Makukutu, and I am a CABA certified ABAT, and I'm an IBT working on my QASPS. So ABA is really like the go-to for me when it comes to behavior challenges. I've worked as an LSA with Incluzun for a while, and I'm so happy to be part of this right now and talking about something I'm very passionate about, which is functional behavior assessments in the classroom. Specifically, the context is in the classroom because that is where we are normally operating from as learning support assistants, right? That's good, that's good. So we're just going to do a little exercise as an icebreaker. I'm just going to call out a few scenarios and you just quickly type in the charts if you understand, if you know what we are going to be calling that. We are just going to put a few scenarios. You know how we already have our ABCs. I trust you've already done ABA. So if it's a functional behavior, it's either the statement I'm going to say is the antecedent, or it's the behavior, or it's the consequence. So you just quickly type that into the chart just so we can see who is saying what and how that is going. I will start with the first one. So scenario one, I'm going to ask you this. The child, during independent writing, the child puts their head on the desk and refuses to pick up the pencil. The LSA removes the worksheet. So removing the worksheet is the what? Removing the worksheet, is it the behavior? Is it the antecedent? Is that the consequence? Let's make it a little faster in the chat. I see. Am I behind?
You've got some responses now. Yeah, you've got some responses. And they're all saying, most of them are saying consequences, some are saying behavior, consequences. Okay.
Consequence is the right answer because the behavior was the throwing the sheets. And what happened after is the consequence. I'll give you a quick scenario again. Scenario two, the classroom becomes noisy and group work, the child covers their ears and crawls under the table. The teacher dims the lights. So the classroom is noisy is the what? The classroom is noisy is the what?
Antecedent. So they're all saying
antecedent, that is it. Thank you. I'll give another scenario. We have, when asked to line up after break, the student drops to the floor crying. The class waits until the child is calm. The crying is the what?
Behavior.
Behavior.
The crying.
Everybody's going for behavior.
Correct. I'll ask the last one. The child throws materials when a non-preferred task is introduced. The LSA provides one-to-one assistance. Now, the one-to-one assistance is the consequence, but what is the likely function of the throwing the sheets? What is the likely function? What is the likely function? Because we are already supposed to know this, and this is supposed to be us refreshing it.
Behavior.
Hear the question nicely. We said a non-preferred task is presented to the child, and the child throws away the worksheet. The LSA picks up the worksheet. So we already know what the behavior is, the throwing of the worksheet, to say the function, the why, escape, that is it, escape, that is correct. Perfect. I think we are on to a good start, to a good footing. So let's quickly get into what we are talking about today. And the reason for what we are talking about today is so that we understand our position as LSAs, that it is not to come into the classroom to simply assist the child. It's not just about assisting, because if your assistance is not systematic or objective, it does not produce the results that are intended by the entire setup already. So we are going to talk about this. Our mission here is to say what? Our mission is to become behavior detectives. Our mission is to become behavior detectives. I need you to look at the screen and you see understanding the why is our first point. Understanding the why in ABA is really for you to understand that behavior is not all about what you can see, but there is always a real reason behind it. So understand the why, grasp what a functional behavior assessment is and why it's a game changer. Number two, we want to be able to identify the motive, learn to spot the common functions behind a student's behavior. And then we want to be able to analyze the scene, distinguish between behavior that is about the child and behavior that is about the environment, because the two are different. I'll give you a quick example to say a 3-year-old can be on the spectrum, can have barriers like ADHD, but even a neurotypical child who is 3 years can be whining to avoid a task, can be whining despite being on the spectrum. So being able to find the difference between where this is a natural occurrence and when it is something you need to respond immediately and objectively. That's why we need to be able to do our functional behavior assessments objectively, to analyze the full scene and not just what you are seeing. And then we should be able to use the field tools confidently, using simple observation tools in your setting, and then applying the insights. This is you looking at the results of what you have discovered through the functional behavior assessment. We can go to the next slide. And on the next slide, you're going to see that we've got something that we are calling the clue, right? This is the first clue. The first clue for us to understand what we are looking at. The first clue is about what? All behavior. All behavior is functional. Is everybody seeing the next slide?
No.
I hope. Miss Mita? Thank you. Thank you. All right, now we've got it there. So the first clue is that all behavior is functional. Now, I want us to just understand this word functional. What is it really talking about? When we say all behavior is functional, we look at it as there is a function, there is a reason, there is a purpose that behavior is meant to serve. So whilst behavior is anything a child does that can be observed and measured, it's not good or bad. I need you to understand that part. That also helps you as a professional not to label children according to their behaviors. Now, the reason why it's not good or bad, it's because it serves a purpose. Observable behavior, it could be calling out, it could be, throwing a tantrum, it could be aggression. All of that is what we observe, but there is a lot that goes on behind the scenes, under the surface. As you can see here, we've got a picture of an iceberg, and the behavior itself is like just the tip. The behavior itself is the tip, and the rest of the iceberg is beneath the scene. You are not able to see it. Nobody is able to see it. So if you respond just to the observable behavior, you miss what is beneath that behavior, the why, the purpose the behavior was meant to serve. We all like to say this. We can go to the next slide, ma'am. We all like to say this, to say the behavior that the child is doing, it has a purpose, and the purpose is what the child is after. So the focus must never be on the behavior. The focus must be on the why. If you answer only to the behavior, you have not solved even half the problem, is the point. You have not solved even half the problem. If you focus on just the behavior, you have not even solved even half the problem. Where we say half a problem solved is better, you have not even solved half the problem if you focus on the behavior, because it simply means what they were trying to communicate has not been heard. They are going to try again and again and again. Now, what happens when the clues are missed? This is what we want to talk about, the consequences of guesswork now. Without understanding the why, we often see strategies become inconsistent and ineffective. And we say adults may unintentionally reinforce the behavior they are trying to reduce. And children get labeled naughty, defiant, instead of being supported. So what are we saying here? We are saying if the consequence, if the guesswork is what you're leading with, what's going to happen is today when you say, I'll give you a little scenario. A child goes under the table during classwork. It's a simple thing. The child has gone under the table during classwork. But I'll give you this. If the function of this particular behavior, this particular time, if the function was escape, right? And they went underneath the table, and you take them from there and go outside with them, you have reinforced going underneath the table. But if the function of going underneath the table was sensory, if the child was overstimulated and it was a sensory need that they were trying to meet, and they go under the table and you take them outside, you have actually averted the problem. You have responded to them. So they are going to trust you. You are building, you have put a block in the right direction. They feel seen. They feel cared for. They feel understood. Whereas instead of the child trying next time to probably communicate in another way, to try and hope you see it, to try and hope you understand them, no, they're going to try. If they look at you as somebody who cares enough to solve their problems, they are going to make an effort, like any one of us, like any one of us. They are going to make an effort. I have seen this live and direct, where you find a student who couldn't do a certain thing. Next time they're going to try and wait. They may not know the words to say, but they're going to wait just for you to arrive first, because they trust that this person is not going to label me. This person is not just going to go with the flow. This person cares and understands why I am doing this. It's not like I am enjoying it. Now, the power of understanding is where you find that thoughtfulness, that thoughtful reaction over impulsivity. It brings you in a place where you and your student both interact in a progressive manner. In that, first and foremost, the student is going to put an effort, to try and communicate to you in less aggressive manners. The child is going to try. Now, the second thing is, you're going to proactively reduce the challenging behavior by responding correctly from understanding and not from guesswork. Now, you're going to be able to teach effective replacement behaviors, because right there is where the difference is. To say, once it is not guesswork and you have observed, understood the function and responded accordingly, the child is going to trust you, but you are also going to see that the child shows you a sign where it almost feels like they are saying, I'm ready to learn. Is there another way for me to communicate with you, miss? That may not be in words. It's never in words most of the times. Sometimes it's simply that they will wait for you to arrive. If you are around, they will wait for you to arrive. And they know when you will give an instruction, they trust the place your instruction is coming from the place of experience, where you actually solve their problems and not react to their problems. Now, you then are able to create a predictable, supportive, safe learning environment, which is exactly the goal, where it is predictable. Because once you get to that place where it is predictable, you are able to also put measures that are antecedental to prevent the situation, the escalations, to help reduce that behavior. We can go to the next slide, ma'am. Now, on the next slide, we are talking about understanding the context, the common barriers to learning. We are saying what? We've got things like communication, right? These are challenges, barriers that come usually with children who are diagnosed with ASD, SSD, that's your autism spectrum disorder, your sensory sensitivity disorder, attention and regulation challenges. Normally you'll find that with children who are diagnosed with ADHD, your attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or your ADD, attention deficit disorder without the hyperactivity. You've got children who show cognitive or processing differences or difficulties. Usually you find that children who are diagnosed with Down syndrome, dyslexia, and other learning barriers. You find emotional regulation issues, children who have a low executive functioning command, and normally children who then are just diagnosed with ODD, or it comes under ADHD, normally oppositional defiance disorder. So why am I saying this? For you also to then understand that when you begin a job as an LSA with a particular student, it's important for you to understand the underlying barriers, the ones that have been diagnosed by a professional. It's important for you to go through the reports, because you are not there to do guesswork. Why is this important? The same behavior may not have the same function in either barriers. What does this mean? What does that mean? We'll understand that in the next slide. Let's go on to the next slide. Now, right here is where this is the issue, to say you then have to be able to be a detective. Now, when you are being a detective using the functional behavior assessment, you've got what we already know, our ABC, your antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence. How it works? It works by analyzing the relationship between the three key parts, right? Your antecedent, what happens right before, immediately before the behavior, what is observable and measurable that the human can do. And we know this based off of the dead man's law. You ask yourself, can a dead man do this? If a dead man can do it, then it is what? It is not behavior. But if a dead man cannot do it, then it is behavior. We work on that. Then consequences, exactly what happens. Now your goal in this, the goal is not to simply stop a behavior, but to understand its purpose so we can teach a more appropriate skill to meet the same need. On the previous slide, we talked about the different barriers and how the same behavior may have a completely different function in either of the barriers. Let's say, for example, this is a sensory issue and the child is there and in the classroom. I'll give you an example. I once had a student who used to rock on his chair. So what he would do is he would be rocking on the chair and then he will put his feet underneath the legs of the chair. So when he puts the chair down, it lands on top of his toes. And he is completely focused in his work, right? Now, the problem was that you would ask to say, okay, is that a problem or is it not? I'm saying this so that you understand that when we're saying you're meant to be a detective, it's about you even being able to observe, to analyze the things that this child is actually going through. You know, somebody once said this to me, when you call it, oh, today was such a difficult day at school. For you, it was difficult in the few hours that you were with that child. But that child is the one who was actually going through a difficult time. It was even more difficult for them. Are you able to connect that to say, it's not about you having a difficult day only, but the more difficult your day is, that's a reflection of how difficult it is potentially for that child. It's even multiplied. The rate at which the difficulty is for that child is even more. Now, he would put his toes underneath the chair and sit. He's focused on the work he's doing and he's laser focused. He wants to finish it. He's got a reward. We've got a reward chart. If you finish this, we are going out to the swing, and he wants to focus. But because of the barrier of ADHD, there was a disconnection. So he had hyperfixations. So he would be hyperfixated and his sensory sensitivities are disconnected somewhere in there. So he is not even feeling the pain. That low muscle tone that came with it, he's unable to communicate that there is pain down there. There is pain. So afterwards, when he is agitated, angry, and all of that, it's not because he was trying to be difficult. There was pain. There was pain going on his toes. His toes were in so much pain. He was frustrated. He doesn't know when it happened, how it happened. And I took it upon myself to find a strategy to solve that issue for him. Why? Because he was unable to connect this. Now you would ask, why is this important? Because the behavior of aggression that came after, if I looked at aggression and I said, this aggression came after writing the work, then I was going to analyze it wrongly. I was just going to look at the antecedent, which is immediate, without considering the context of the setting, without considering what else is happening in the environment. I'm saying this so that even when you are in the field, your goal is to understand what is the child trying to meet What is the child trying to prevent? What is the child trying to reduce for themselves? What is the child reacting to or responding to in this particular moment? Now, the connection to what we are trying to say is that aggression alone for a child like this who has that barrier of ADHD diagnosed, right? There is that significant hyperfixation that came with it. Now, if this child had sensory sensitivity difficulty, it wouldn't just be setting his chair on his toes. He would then come up probably with a complete low muscle tone in his body, which would result in even low sensory sensitivity to things like toileting in the same scenario. So your approach wouldn't be prompting him to sit nicely or to just prompt him, maybe putting a band on his chair for him to play with his feet. In the context of this child, we found a raised footstool. So when he sat on the chair, he liked the feeling. When he puts it had bubbles on it, so he would remove his shoes with his socks. He would be playing on the raised, elevated footstool, and he would be playing with it like that, sensory work. But for a child who had sensory sensitivity disorders, that wouldn't be the solution. On this case, it would be a completely different game altogether, because what you now need would be to work with the occupational therapist and have a whole sensory diet that would help the child to develop or to better prepare themselves for this scenario, these situations. This is just so you know that when we are in the field, we are there as detectives. It's not one size fits all. It's not, let me just ask ChatGPT, what should I do when the child is screaming, and ChatGPT gives you an answer and you go with that. You observe the entire environment. Your antecedent must be applied within the context. You rule out certain areas that are obvious, setting events like, did the child eat? Is the child feeling well? Did the child have a good night? Did the child sleep? All these seem as though it's just the same, it's one and the same thing. Or to say, what exactly is the barrier of this child? The child has probably his barrier is ASD, autism spectrum disorder, and he's got some comorbidities, and he's got some dyslexia in there. So how you approach it is different. It's not the same. It's not one size fits all. It's not a tailor's measurement. You just cut the cloth and go with it. No, you analyze every single thing is important. We can move on to the next slide. While we are
I'm just going to add something here, Sophia. That is something that is very, very, very important, and you have driven an amazing point home. We are constantly talking about observations. Now, a lot of us can do the observations, but the interpretation of the observation, which is what Sophia has been talking about, the understanding and the interpretation of the observation, bringing everything together. Now, a lot of the LSAs here who work with Incluzun know that they usually reach out to me or to somebody on my team when they are struggling to support the child that they are with. We encourage them to go to the school because it is important that the inclusion team must be a part of it, because they are the main support in the school. It is important. But sometimes they just need a sounding board. They need support and direction. And one of the things that we always encourage them to do is observe and then review your observations. Why is it happening? Yes. What is the root cause of it? Could it be because it's too cold in the classroom for the child? The child could be screaming, and there you are thinking, oh, this child is being silly. But like Sophia was telling us, it is important that we understand what our observations are, where are they coming from. I will go on to the next slide. Super amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And that point, I believe it leads us to the point where we say, hey, whatever you were doing in the school, let it be above board. Let it be above board. It's not about just one day, but look at it as a full page to say, hey, if you are able to grow yourself, to grow as an LSA in ABA, that growth is not for the child, it's for you. You remain with it. If you develop the skills, you become better at the observations, you are the one who remains with that. That skill set is yours. Now, here we are deconstructing the evidence. Now you have analyzed, you've observed it, the antecedent, which is our trigger, and then you're looking at the behavior, which is the observable action, and the consequence, which is the immediate outcome. Now, let's say what happens right before the behavior. A difficult task is given, a transition is about to happen, the noise level increases, or a direct instruction is given. There are so many antecedents we can think of, even in the classroom, to say maybe a new teacher shows up. A new teacher shows up, or the class teacher is absent. The class teacher is absent. All of those factors can be antecedental, can be triggers, and result in certain unwanted behaviors. Now, what exactly did the child do? It's important for you to define that. I've seen LSAs who then will say, oh, this child doesn't listen. Every time I'm with them, they don't listen. Uh-oh, we've got a problem there. Not listening in itself cannot be the definition of the behavior that you've got. You have to define it. What did they do? What did they do? What did they do? They were not listening? Okay, so what did they do? It must be observable. So what did they do? They got up. They stood up. It must be measurable. How many times? 2 times. And non-judgmental, e.g., tore the paper instead of had a tantrum. So what are we saying? Use descriptive language that is productive in a way that you are using it as a detective would do. You are deconstructing your evidence, but in a constructive manner. Now, if you say he had a tantrum, you have already labeled that child as difficult. Without meaning it, you have already labeled them as difficult, as all of these things. We are saying, let it be specific. The child cried, the child screamed, the child threw a paper, the child knocked their head on the desk, the child, what exactly did they do? It's important. Remember, I gave you an example of a child who would sit and his chair would come on his toes. So imagine if I was just looking at that child from one big blanket and it's, this child just screams. No, it's not the scream. I managed to discover that, no, this screaming wasn't just screaming. It was agony. It was pain. It wasn't just aggression that comes and somebody's pushing people. No, it was agony. It was agony. They were agonized. And when I was looking at my functional behavior data, my ABCs, I realized that there were several times when he would have an agonized scream suddenly in the classroom. He's in agony. He's in pain. Where is this coming from? What? The next thing is he picks a pencil, he chucks it to the next person, he picks something, he knocks somebody's head. But that wasn't the first thing that happened. The first thing was an agonized scream. It had to be specific. So that imagine somebody going through your sheet of data. Are they able to then observe and see the same thing you saw? Are they able to then say, oh, that is what she was saying, when they see it? So it's not just about you witnessed it. Is another person able to go through your notes, go through your data, and have the full picture, an accurate picture of what you recorded? Then the consequence, what happens as a direct result? The child receives adult attention, or whether it's positive or negative, or he escapes the tasks, gets access to a desired item, or experiences a sensory input. What exactly was the immediate outcome? This is what helps you now to see. In that case, with the child, the teacher would then come to him to ask, what is wrong? What is wrong? And he bursts into a meltdown, not a tantrum. And you go to him. At that point, it's no longer about the behavior. We deal with the immediate situation. The child is having a meltdown. I would take him outside quietly. Take him outside quietly into a place that he can actually calm. We practice our calming strategies. But afterwards, I would ask him, this is one thing a lot of LSAs miss. Your student most times knows exactly what he was trying to do, only if you ask. That's why it's important to have a good relationship with that student. It's important to be well paired with your student. It's important that they have the correct perspective of your role and who you are as a supporter, as an advocate for them. Now, what am I talking about? Even simply asking them to say, I noticed you started screaming suddenly. What happened? One simple question can help you debunk it. One simple question can help you break the kennel, and you're able to see. Sometimes they may not be able to describe the whole thing. There were times when my student would simply point to the shoe, and you're even puzzled, like, pointing, I'm asking what happened, and this one is pointing the shoe. What is this? But keep it at the back of my mind. Afterwards is when I realized that, oh, I got it. This is why this person has been pointing to the shoe. That's what he was trying to communicate, to say, this is the issue. Now, you see, oh, all right, this is the issue. We found another way around the matter. We found another way to solve it. We can go to the next slide. This time now we can go probably a little faster, even, Miss Mita, if that's okay. So now we are saying, cracking the why, the 4 functions, which everybody on this platform, if you're working in the school, is already supposed to be knowing. We've got escape and avoidance, to say they want to get away from the task, or attention, to gain attention from a particular person. Now, I like talking about, there's something I like in there, in attention, where attention itself can then become a reinforcer if applied correctly and in a structured scenario, not just randomly, but in a structured scenario. There were places where my relationship with my student became a reinforcer. Yes, we've got 4 functions, Shout at MCAN. This is 4 functions to say. One function is escape, one is attention, one is access to tangibles. They want to access the playroom, they want the iPad, they want food. One function is sensory or automatic, to say it's sensory stimulation, it's internal stimulation that is the result, the reason why they are behaving a particular way. Now, I was reading in the ABA journal, and there's some discussion of a 5th function. I'm just saying this so you can just know what is out there. A 5th function of control. Now, it's not here because it's not part of what we are discussing, but a sense of control, to say sometimes the behavior is because they simply want to be in control. They simply want to be in control. They feel like everything is too much and everybody has a say except them. So they want that sense of control because it then gives them a sense of calmness. We can go to the next slide. It can give them that sense of comfort. Now, we look at this. Now, you as the detective, here is the scenario. A student, when asked to begin written work, throws their materials and rips the paper. Now, I need you to understand, we are in the classroom, so the teacher is expecting work to be done. The teacher may or may not be supportive of your role. We hope they are, but we say that even if it's there or not, that is not your focus at this point. Now, we're saying the antecedent is there is an instruction. The LSA says, time to start your writing task. And the child rips the worksheet, throws the pencil, and the consequence is you go over there and say, let's calm down. And the student is removed from the task for a few minutes. Now, see, what is the purpose, the function of this behavior? Escape, right? The behavior was highly effective. It successfully delayed or removed the writing demand. The key insight is that from the child's perspective, the behavior worked. Now, if the behavior worked, what does that mean? That means it's going to be repeated again. You're going to see that behavior again. Now, why did this child throw the paper in the first place? Could it be that the work was a little too difficult? Could it be that they are having a problem transitioning from the previous task to this particular task? Could it be that at that particular moment, they want to go to the washroom, but they didn't know what to say? Could it be that while before you came to tell them the instruction, they were already mad at you for something they felt misunderstood before? So they were just in that space where they are ready to oppose whatever you were going. It didn't matter what you would have come up with. Now, we are saying, in as much as we are looking at this scenario, it's important to have your assessments, your functional behavior assessments, professionally recorded so that you can take a separate time to analyze them, because it's going to be a situation, it's going to get tricky where you find the next time you give the same instruction and the child complies. Now, if you don't know the reason why, you need to know. It cannot be guesswork. And I like to do this, to flip the script, where when it works, I also would do my ABC so that I understand. This time they complied. What did I do right? What did I do right? We can go to the next one. What did I do right?
Again, before we go on, this brings us back to what Sophia was talking about earlier. Observations, understanding our observations, interpreting them correctly so that we can then set up the next stage for the child to be successful. So at the end of the day, you can go and learn 1,000 strategies. You can come and say, oh yes, I can do this and I can do that, and I can, when the child screams, I can do 100 different things. However, if you don't understand why the child is screaming, your 100 strategies are not going to be successful. You need to know what is the right thing to do at that time. Yes, sometimes it's not possible to be correct the first time, but it is always possible to try different things. So you can eliminate your top 5 strategies. So let's say, giving the child noise cancelling headphones, giving the child a squishy ball because you suspect it might be a sensory overload, and still after all of this, it's not showing the success that you want. Then you know that your initial observation wasn't right. You need to now review that, right?
Yes.
Guys, we are really rushing for time, but I had to put all of that in because I wanted to tie that up. I'm going to go on. Right, Sophia, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you. I think we'll be done in the next 5 and just open if somebody has a burning question. In fact, if somebody has a burning question, you can type it in there. Then I hope to be able to just respond to that. Yeah. We are saying your role as an LSA is not to diagnose. It's not to punish. It's not to do guesswork. You're not there to be guessing. Use your data, use it. Now it says what? Your role is observing. Observation in itself, just the, sometimes you are in a hurry to find a solution. And on one particular day, the success story could be just the observation. It is perfectly okay. That is your foundation to the next day and the next one and the next one. So your role is observing. Your role is recording. Use simple tools to record and log your data. Supporting, constantly implement the agreed upon support strategies. Some children are in multiple therapies as you come into the picture, and it's important to carry on with your data and share it with the relevant specialists that are working with that child. And collaborating, this is where it's important. Say that collaboration, we can go to the next slide, is where now you are able to get more insight into the scenario, into the situation. We can go to the next slide, ma'am. Now, we are saying your field, yes, that one. Your field kit has to be simple but effective. We are saying ABC recording sheet. The school may not provide. They may not even need it. But if you have it and you are writing it, the person who is going to get better results is also you. It helps you as a professional to grow. Let us trust organic growth in this field. It's not just about getting a certificate somewhere and coming with it when you know nothing about how to apply any of those things in reality. So it's important for you to trust that organic growth is necessary. It makes you more mature. Your next exposure will be better because you have a foundation previously. Then we had there to say, you're using your duration recordings, your trigger checklists, if necessary. Then we are saying what? From clues to action, how your data shapes support. You adjust the antecedents. Once you understand the function, you adjust the antecedent with the aim to prevent, right? Then you're able to teach replacement behaviors. Say, instead of screaming, if you need a hug, come and say, Miss, can I have a hug? And you give the child a hug and they go back. Of course, that is according to the limitations that your school allows, your parent allows, and all abiding by the rules and laws. We are saying change adult responses. Sometimes it could be just that one tweak where you have a conversation with the teacher. Say, instead of the teacher saying, maybe say your student's name is Sophia, and the teacher keeps saying, Sophia said, Sophia said. And you just explain to the teacher that I suspect that the function is attention, your attention. So instead of saying Sophia said, ignore it for today. And you tell them ahead of time that as we ignore it, there's a high possibility that it's going to escalate. But even if it does, please ignore it. We are working on this. It's a strategy we are using. And you do that, you say, oh, okay. After some time it escalates, then it will take a downside where it actually reduces. Now, rules of engagement when you're a detective. We can go to the next slide. Stay neutral and stay calm. This is a game changer. And then be consistent. Be consistent. When you find something that works, be consistent. Use clear and simple, direct language. That one is another game changer. Make it as simple as possible. Reinforce effort. Yes, effort to say, oh, nice asking. Let it not be too generic to just say good job. The child doesn't understand what you mean. But let it be nice asking, great asking. I like the way you asked today. That was very nice. Nice using your words so the child also understands what the reinforcer is for. And don't take behavior personally. I see this a lot. A lot of people take it personally. Oh, that child doesn't like me. It's not doesn't like you. Let's not take behavior personally. Let's not argue with the child. You know, you are now negotiating and you will think it's a quick fix. But once you go down that lane, even the child realizes that they are in control and you lose your place. The last slide has behavior is communication, and every behavior has a function. These things, we will say them over and over again. Your functional behavior assessment helps you to support, not label, helps you to understand and not judge. Small changes are better when they are executed properly and correctly, and most importantly, objectively. There's one big fix, no. And you play a vital role. Your observations are the foundation of effective support. So don't take yourself as, oh, I'm just a small time player. No, you are a big part in this success story. It's not always just about saying, oh, we have a whole success thing. No, sometimes it's just being able to observe the data and write it down and allow others to do their own jobs in the space that you were in. Over to you, Miss Mita. If there's a question in the chat that I should respond to, if we have a minute to answer it,
I
we'll
will.
do so.
I thank you. Thank you, Sophia. That was outstanding. I just want to come back to this particular slide because what I find is that a lot of LSAs tend to take misbehavior of the children as a very personal thing. Unfortunately, yes, you're right. You might be a punching bag for the child, but remember, it's not because they don't like you. It's because you are the person closest to them. You are the one they express their behavior and their concerns with. And the way they do it is maybe by hitting out, by lashing out to you. It's not because they don't like you. Be very, 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 very clear about that. Staying neutral and calm. I cannot stress that enough. And consistent strategies, again, something that all of us should be doing. Now, your language, something that we talk about all the time as well, especially when it comes to giving instructions. We have constantly talked about one-step instructions, two-step instructions, and three-step instructions. It is important that you understand what these are, that you need to give your instructions according to the understanding of the children. When you create confusion, that's when behaviors start coming up. That's when behaviors start showing up. Now, reinforce effort. Use positive replacement skills. I will bring on again another session where we can stress further on this and work out more strategies on how to make. But what you can do is that have a think about everything that you have heard today and see how you can apply it in school, in your classroom. And as always, if you have any questions, email it to us. We are always constantly ready to support. A very comprehensive LSA training course, which we are currently promoting at a very reasonable rate because we want you guys to have as much training and support as possible. We will also paste that link in the chat. Click on it and see if it's something that can help you further your understanding of being an LSA. We will be very, very happy that, you know, we can be a part of your growth. And like Sophia said, don't just run around and try to get your certificates. Please, the training that you are doing, it needs to make sense. Now, a lot of you come to me and says, oh, I'm an ABA therapist. I'm an ABA therapist. I know I've done the 40 hours of ABA. Without any understanding, I ask the first question and straight away we know, you know, whether you have taken the time to understand the course, whether you worked on examples. All right. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful, wonderful evening and a lovely rest of the month and rest of the year. And Happy New Year, everybody. We will see you again soon.